That's Llewellyn Brown, the committee secretary. Good morning, members of the Portfolio Committee.
Morning, Mr. Brown. We hear you clearly.
Thank you very much. Again, morning to the Portfolio Committee members of Basic Education, those of the Portfolio Committee on Health, those of the Portfolio Committee on Women and Youth, as well as those of Social Development. Also to the Minister, DM and DG and senior officials of the department. I welcome you to the meeting this morning. Unfortunately, I have to indicate that Chairperson will be joining us a bit later this morning. She has a medical appointment. She indicated that she will be able to join us probably within the next hour or so. And as much as I wanted to, unfortunately, we have to choose a member of the committee to stand in as an acting chairperson until the chairperson is available to join us. I would like to, at this point, call for a nomination for an acting chairperson for the session until chairperson arrives. I can take some hands. I see Honorable Kabanchaba and Honorable Govana. Honorable Kabanchaba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown, our secretary of the committee. Let me start first greeting to all protocols observed, to all departments who are in the platform. Mr. Brown, I rise to nominate our acting chairperson in this time while our chairperson is on the doctor. My name is Pretty Pindisile Kabanchaba. I'm nominating the honorable member of the committee, which is our whip of the committee, Honorable Low, to be our acting chair. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Honorable Kabanchaba. Honorable Kabanchaba has nominated Honorable Low as acting chairperson. Can I have a seconder for that nomination? Honorable Govana.
Thanks, Mr. Brown. Greetings to yourself, greetings to honorable members and the protocol that is already established. I stand to second Honorable Kabanchaba on the nomination of acting chair, Honorable Low. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Govana. Honorable Govana seconds that nomination for Honorable Low as acting chair. Do I have any further nominations for acting chairperson? In the absence of which...
Mr. Brown, my hand is up.
Sorry, I couldn't see that. Sorry, Honorable Shikombana, please come in.
Thank you very much and greetings to all in the meeting. I thought Honorable Kabanchaba will nominate me, but I second the name of Honorable Law. It's fine.
I'm so sorry, honorable member, Amanda. Honorable member.
I note Honorable Jordan. Please come.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. I'd like to nominate Honorable Spies.
Thank you, Honorable Jordan is nominating Honorable Spies as acting chairperson. Do I have a seconder for that nomination?
No, what's up? Sorry, Honorable Chair. I'm struggling to unmute. May you please recognize me?
Honorable Kanyile, I recognize you.
Thank you very much. I sincerely apologize for that. I was struggling to raise my hand. I am Honorable Kanyile. I'm a member of Portfolio on Women, joining the joint sitting today. I am seconding the nomination that was made by Honorable Jordan to nominate Honorable Spies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kanyile. We now have two nominations. That is for Honorable Low, and then I also have a nomination for Honorable Kanyile. I think at this point we must maybe just put it to the vote, members. Now I'm going to have to request those in favor of Honorable Low, only those in favor of Honorable Low, to please raise your hand so I can take a count from my side. Thank you.
Can I ask, Secretary, if you can also recognize me? It's Honorable Chauke Adonis from the Portfolio Committee from Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities.
Thank you, Honorable Chauke Adonis. Members, can we just have Honorable Chauke Adonis on the platform? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm unable to raise my hand at this point, but can it be noted that I second the acting chairperson to be Honorable Low? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chauke Adonis. I am now at a point where I've got two nominations, and we're putting it to a vote. And I would like you just to raise your hands, those in favor of Honorable Low. If you can just raise your hands, thank you. Thank you, members. I have those in favor of Honorable Spies. Please raise your hands. Members, we are now taking hands for Honorable Spies. Overwhelmingly at this point, members.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir.
I saw Honorable Kabantaba did not lower her hand. You might have mistaken.
Yes. Honorable Kabantaba,
No.
can you please?
Oh, can I lower? Okay, all right. No,
Yeah,
so
please lower your hand.
Okay, thank you.
Members, the voting is as follows. I have 7 members in favor of Honorable Spies as acting chairperson. I have 6 members in favor of Honorable Low as acting chairperson. I would like at this point to call upon Honorable Spies to take the chair until such time that the chairperson has arrived. Thank you very much, members.
But you didn't count my hands.
I have
to Honorable Spies.
No.
Because I was not nominating her.
Yes, I have that. We've asked you to lower your hand for Honorable Spies, and your hand is up for Honorable Low. But we still have the voting in favor of Honorable Spies.
Secretary, if I may, apologies.
Honorable Chauke Adonis.
Thank you very much. Apologies for the interruption. I just wanted clarity here, and I might have come in perhaps under false pretense and being misinformed. I just wanted to know, because we are now, or you are calling for nominations for the acting chair for the Portfolio Committee for Basic Education, one would think that it resides with the Portfolio Committee of Basic Education and its members. I know I did raise my hand to nominate. I had thought perhaps that's how it's supposed to work, but I am of the understanding now that it is supposed to be members of that portfolio committee that are the ones who participate in the voting and the nomination process of the acting chairperson of this particular portfolio committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Honorable. Normally, it would be the case. We do have members of other parties and other committees that are present in this meeting. They have been invited to be with us today. And as such, the meeting will accept those hands from committee members of the various parties, that is for health, women and youth, and social development.
Sorry, Honorable Brown. Mr. Brown, maybe some honorable members, they are not able to raise their hands. Maybe if you did indicate first the members who are in the platform first, maybe that can help us, Honorable Brown.
Thank you, Honorable Kabantaba. Can I just take Honorable Jordan as well?
No, thank you, Mr. Brown. My hand was actually still up because of the voting, but I mean it's clear that some members are not accepting the outcome of this, even though Honourable Spies had overwhelmingly been nominated as the chair. Can we please get on with the meeting? It's now been 10 minutes and we have not yet even appointed a chairperson. Please, I plead with you, honourable colleagues.
Thank you, Honourable. You have done. Yes, Honourable, you're done. So we've done the voting. The numbers tallied as Honourable Spies to be the acting chairperson until the chairperson of the committee arrives. I would like us to. You've given me a very difficult morning this morning, but that's fine. At this point, I would like to hand over to Honourable Spies, if I may, to act for the time as the chairperson may arrive. Thank you, Honourable Spies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Sorry, Mr. Brown, there is someone that's interrupting. Can I continue? Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, honourable members. Thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity to chair this joint meeting. This is my second meeting as a new member of the Portfolio of Basic Education, and it's quite an honor for me to be able to chair this particular meeting this morning. First of all, I would like to welcome each and everyone to this meeting, the Department of the Committee of Health, the Committee on Social Development, and also the committee members, honourable members from the Committee Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. I would also like at this point, please ask if anyone could propose that we adopt the agenda. If I can ask for a person to indicate the adoption of the agenda. Mr. Brown, do you see any hands here?
Honourable Spies, good morning. It's Honourable van der Merwe. Can I move for the adoption, Chairperson, Acting Chair?
Please go ahead, Honourable van der Merwe.
Acting Chair, good morning to you, and thank you very much for the warm welcome to the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. We want to thank you, Acting Chair, for extending an invitation to us to be a part of this meeting. I would like to move for the adoption of the agenda as flighted this morning.
Thank you very much, Honourable van der Merwe. I would now like to call for a member to second the adoption of the agenda.
Honorable Kabanchaba, seconded.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kabanchaba. We can then proceed, Mr. Brown. If you can just inform the meeting if there are any apologies.
Thank you, Acting Chairperson Spies. I will just go through the attendance register for the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education. I will then also hand over to my colleagues from the other three committees. Maybe they can also just come in with their roll call. And apologies. From the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education, I have Honourable Kabanchaba, Honourable Govana, Honourable Low, Honourable Magagula, Honourable Jordan, Honourable Spies, Honourable Mkhize, Honourable Mgadi, and Honourable Shikwambana. As indicated, Chairperson Maimela will join us a few minutes later. If I can hand over to my colleagues from the Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, just to give us a roll call from their side, Chair. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, colleagues. Chairperson, on my side for the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, I have received apologies from Honourable Polwane, who is attending a funeral and is therefore unable to log into the meeting. I've also received an apology from Honourable Teresa J., who is attending a mini plenary session starting at 10. I've also received an apology from Honorable Mbiko. Even though she is in the meeting, she will leave the meeting early at around 10:20 to attend a doctor's appointment. That's it from my side, Chairperson. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, can we move to the next committee?
I have Honorable the Committee on Health, if they are able to assist with their roll call, the Portfolio Committee on Health. Thank you.
Chair and members, for PC on Health, I have Ms. Shabangu, Dr. Leroux, Ms. Ishmael, and Mr. Mjadu. And the apologies are from the following members: the chairperson of the committee, Ms. Motambi, Ms. Clark, Ms. Sine, Mr. Van Saden, Dr. Likape, Ms. Mhlongo, and Mr. Zungula. That is all from my side.
We are just waiting for the social development. I'm not sure if the secretary or social development, just to give us a roll call from your side, if you don't mind. Acting Chair, I'm not sure if my colleague from Social Development is with us, but if there are members of the Social Development Committee present, if they may just indicate. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, are there any members from Social Development on the platform? If not, I would like us to proceed with the meeting. Going once, twice. Doesn't seem like we have any representatives, which I kind of find quite difficult to understand, Mr. Brown. Could you ascertain to us why that is the case?
Chairperson, if I may, two things. One, I do know that there is a mini plenary happening this morning, and those members have indicated that they may have to be in the plenary, although the committee has approval to meet this morning during the mini plenary. And then I can only surmise that members of that committee will join us when they are able.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Brown. Then with the permission of the meeting, I'm going to proceed. Yes.
My apologies, Acting Chairperson. It's Honorable Van der Merwe, the Chairperson of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Also, good morning to the Honorable Minister, the Deputy Minister and her team. I have to apologize, Honorable Spies. The reason that social development might possibly not be in the meeting, the National Assembly program changed, and they are due to table a report this morning in the mini plenary. The Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities will also be tabling a report in the National Assembly this morning. So I will endeavour to stay as long as I can, and I'm sure honourable members of the Portfolio Committee will stay behind. But we do have items in the mini plenaries this morning, both for the Portfolio Committee on Social Development and for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So noted, Honorable Van der Merwe. Colleagues.
Chair, sorry,
yes.
I think you're not seeing anybody's hands because we've all got our hands raised, but I don't think you're seeing our hands are raised.
I'm not seeing it on my device.
Yeah, because all of us had our hands raised, and Honorable Mkize's hand was raised after mine, so they might want to speak after me. I just wanted to let you know, good morning, everybody, and it's lovely to be part of this joint portfolio committee. Chair, I serve as an alternate on social development, and I have not seen any invitation come through in that department on that portfolio committee for today's meeting. The invitation I received was only via Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. So it just might be worth checking to see whether or not they actually did receive an invitation to this, because the only notifications I've received from that department portfolio committees are for next week. There wasn't one for this meeting. Thank you. You're muted, Chair.
Can I also come in, Chair? Since
Honorable Mkhize.
Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to you, Bogodo. Greetings to all the ministers present and the representative from other pieces. Chair, looking at the sensitivity and the priority of the issue that you are dealing with today, discussing it in the absence of social development, a very critical implementer of all the recommendations and performer of various functions to make the change on statutory rep on the ground is going to be a very futile exercise, Chairperson. Looking at the report you have received, the non-action that we have received tells you that we have to have full attendance by all critical stakeholders for us to substantively discuss the matters that you are dealing with. We cannot make this a box ticking exercise, Chair. We have to have full presence, and we don't have DSD, which is very critical for this kind of work. The subject matter rests on their shoulders as well. I therefore propose, Chair, that we postpone this meeting up until they are available, together with all other PCs and stakeholders. We also have to have a very deep dive discussion on these matters, on various performance issues and priority activities moving forward. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Mr. Brown, you can just quickly indicate to me whose hands are up with that, because I do not see them on my screen. You can just quickly indicate to me.
Yeah. Honorable Spies, at this point, it's only my hand that's up.
Okay.
I would just wanted to respond to the previous query, Chair. So, Chairperson, the referral in the ATC was to it's regarding the Basic Education Minister's reply to the interim report. Ideally, we would have wanted all four. Let me go back. So it was referred to the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education, and then also Health, Social Development, and Women and Youth for consideration and report. It would have been ideal, and just to answer the previous member, correspondence did go out to all three committees: Health, Social Development, and Women and Youth, to all three chairpersons. There was correspondence from all three committees indicating their attendance and non-attendance due to the mini plenary. And ideally, I say again that ideally we would have wanted them all to be part of this meeting. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And if needs be, those committees may have their own session with Basic Education Department. But ideally, we would have wanted all of them to be, unfortunately, due to the mini plenary and the changes to the parliamentary program, that was not feasible. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Brown. So for the record, everyone has been invited. Apologies, obviously, would be the appropriate thing to do in the case where members cannot attend the meeting. And if members couldn't find their way and they had other commitments, that should have been duly communicated to the secretariat of this committee. And then obviously one would have had another another approach towards this meeting. But at this point, everyone has been informed, everyone has been invited, and those who cannot be here apologize. And I would like us to then proceed. I believe this is a second attempt at this particular meeting that we are having today. And this, honorable members, as much, I'm sure you will agree with me, this is a very serious matter. It's a national crisis, and we need to really apply our minds now and make sure that we address this with the seriousness that it deserves. So I would like to propose that we move on and continue with the meeting. Thank you very much. I will then proceed, Chair. Sorry, I will then proceed. First of all, allow me to welcome our Minister of Basic Education, the Deputy Minister, all officials present. And I would like to say, as I said, the purpose of today's meeting is obviously to receive a briefing from the Department of Basic Education on the Minister's reply to the joint interim report on the statutory rape of young girls, which was adopted by the National Assembly on the 5th of March and subsequently referred to the respective portfolio committees. Colleagues, the matter before us is both serious and it's also deeply sensitive, and it's at the heart of this is safety, dignity, and the rights and the well-being of children. And the issues that was raised in the joint interim report, it cuts across the mandates of various departments, and which is precisely why our collective oversight is so important. Protecting children cannot be the responsibility of one department or one institution alone, and it obviously requires effective coordination, a clear accountability, and importantly, it requires action. And so as committees of parliament, we all would agree that our responsibility today is not therefore to simply note the minister's response, but also, honourable members, to understand what has been done, what remains outstanding, and where challenges persist, and what further interventions may be required. I would like to ask that we conduct our deliberations with the seriousness and sensitivity that the subject deserves, but also that we ensure that the engagement remains focused on strengthening the systems that should protect young girls and children more broadly. It is my wish now and my trust that today's engagement will be constructive, frank, and above all centered on the best interest of the children whom these measures are intended to protect. With those introductory remarks, honourable members, I would like to thank the members for their attendance, and I would like to welcome the Department of Basic Education to then immediately go over with the presentation. Honourable Minister of the part of the Basic Education, Minister Khawawube, I would like you to obviously start the discussions or deliberations.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Much appreciated, and a very good morning to the honourable members of the various committees. I think it is absolutely apt, Chair, that we have these various portfolio committees that are represented here today, because as you indicate in your opening remarks, this is an incredibly important subject, one that really hits at the heart of the work that we do, and really the rights of children. And so really having as many members of parliament as we do is really incredibly important for us, because I think as a department, we can't lead the efforts against the scourge of violence against children alone. That we're going to need the various departments, but also, the various members of parliament to help us with this endeavor. Every learner, Chair, has the right to attend school without the fear of sexual exploitation, abuse, or harassment. And so when parents and caregivers entrust children to our schools, they do so with the expectations that those institutions and the adults within them will protect their dignity, their safety, and their well-being. And so sexual violence against learners is therefore not only a criminal matter, but it really is a societal sickness. It directly undermines the constitutional rights of children and the conditions necessary for meaningful learning. The National Assembly Chair adopted the joint interim report on the 5th of March, containing 7 recommendations that require action across the different parts of government and the education system. The department has assessed those recommendations against the legal, the policy, and institutional mechanisms currently in place. These include the National School Safety Framework, the Protocol for Management and Reporting of Sexual Abuse and the Harassment in Schools, the Integrated School Health Policy, and the Policy for Prevention and Management of Learner Pregnancy, and the Online Safety Guidelines, and all applicable legislative and professional frameworks. But Chair, I want to hasten to say that the existence of policy and legislation and protocols alone does not mean that the system is working as effectively as it should. The department's own response identifies serious systemic gaps, including the pace of vetting of all the people who work with children in our schools, the gaps in end-to-end case tracking, insufficient child-friendly hearing infrastructure, weaknesses in information sharing between our institutions and government, and challenges in ensuring that those who should no longer work with children cannot simply re-enter the system elsewhere. If they are fired in one province, they cannot just simply apply in another province and find themselves in front of a classroom again. And so those gaps must be confronted honestly, Chair. And importantly, many of the recommendations before us do not fall just within the mandate of the Basic Education Department alone. Effective child protection requires the coordination between basic education, social development, justice and constitutional development, the South African Police Service, SACE, and the ELRC, and of course, our provincial education departments. For the child who has been harmed, however, those institutional boundaries should never become barriers to their protection or support or justice. And therefore, we have to approach this as one government and one child protection system while remaining very clear about the responsibilities and accountability of each department. So our task today should not be an exercise in shifting responsibility from one department to another. It must be about identifying where the system is failing, who is responsible for addressing each weakness, and how collectively we close those gaps so that our vulnerable children can be protected. Chair, the department's presentation today responds to each of the 7 recommendations and sets out both the mechanisms already in place and the actions that are still required from us. And so we really welcome the oversight of all these committees on this matter. Our measure of success can't simply be whether we have a policy in place. It must be whether every learner who experiences abuse is protected, whether the matter is reported and dealt with appropriately, and where the necessary consequences must follow. And so thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll now hand over to the department to take the committees through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Can the responsible official proceed with the presentation? Thank you very much, Mr. Brown.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Granville Whittle. I'm the Deputy Director General responsible for this area of work. I'm going to invite our Director, Mr. Liko Bottoman, to make the department's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whittle. Just for purposes of me just putting a face to the name, if you can quickly just show your face.
I can certainly do that, Chair. I hope that you can see that I'm there. Thank you very much.
Now, I just see the presentation. That's fine. Let's move on. Let's not waste any time. You can start with your presentation.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Good morning to you and the honorable members, the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and all departmental officials. My name is Liko Bottoman. I work in the Department of Basic Education. I am the Director for Social Cohesion and Equity in Education, and for the work around gender transformation, school-related gender-based violence, and gender empowerment are all sitting in our portfolio. And as requested by the Minister, then I'll run through the outline of the report that was submitted to Parliament on the interim report regarding the statutory rape of young girls. The presentation outline is looking like this. I'll try not to waste time, but really just go through the salient matters on this list of issues, Chairperson. The background, I think it was already laid by yourself, Chairperson, and the Minister, that we have a report, but the conversation that we've had at DPE is more than just the report. We also want to see how we can, establish a system, an education system as an ecosystem that works for the management of sexual abuse and harassment in schools. And so since the National Assembly adopted the interim report, the Speaker then sent the report to our Minister with 7 key recommendations, and we needed to respond to those recommendations within 45 working days. And so after we had received the report, we then convened a transversal interbranch meeting to assess progress against the recommendations that are contained in that report. We also then extended our invitation to our entities like the South African Council for Educators, as well as the Education Labour Relations Council, because there were quite strong recommendations or findings in the report that were particularly speaking to sexual misconduct that is perpetrated by educators. And so we needed to have that comprehensive conversation. I think both the chairperson and the minister have already indicated why this report matters, that it has got to do with us ensuring that the inalienable rights, constitutional right to dignity and safety and quality education for children is of paramount importance. And that we now understand more than ever that sexual violence, especially in schools, in fact, violates the rights and it undermines the conditions for meaningful learning. And Chairperson, we are intersecting sexual abuse that is happening in schools with sexual abuse that is happening actually in homes and communities, which then has a tendency of spilling over into our schools. So the problem for us is bigger than what just happens inside the school or on that school bus or on the way from home to school, but it is also what happens in those communities that we're concerned about. At least we've got an operational framework called Care and Support for Teaching and Learning, which establishes the conditions for vulnerable children to realize their right to education, free from school-related gender-based violence. And this operational framework is, suggesting an intersectoral, multisectoral, multidisciplinary, intergovernmental way of working to address these issues, because there are strong points, that the basic education sector has, which, we can capitalize on, particularly when we're talking about the curriculum that we constantly improve and we constantly provide tools and instruments for the delivery of that curriculum. More recently, we've just, launched the state-owned life orientation textbooks, which we've never had because we never had state-owned textbooks in life orientation. And now we have got those textbooks, which are in line with the process that we have already started at DPE of strengthening the curriculum. And so now, at least when it comes to prevention of violence and prevention of sexual abuse and bullying and all the related matters, we've got a very strong and clarified thematic area in those textbooks. They run from grade 4 up to grade 12, and we are also trying to translate them into all the different languages so that there is a very strong content that is contained there. But that's the strong point of basic education. But where basic education is lacking, where we also then need the support from the other sectors that are represented by the other portfolio committees in the virtual room, is particularly post-violence care and other care and support services that are provided by other departments. Where that's fortunately then this operational framework is allowing us to work in that fashion. So we are not wanting when it comes to policy frameworks and legislative underpinnings, because we've got that. And here in terms of those instruments that Minister was talking about as well, we now, we have the National School Safety Framework, the Protocol for the Management and Reporting of Sexual Abuse and Harassment in Schools, the Exemplar Code of Conduct for Schools, the Integrated School Health Policy, the Policy on the Prevention and Management of Learner Pregnancy in Schools, the Online Safety Guidelines. We've had to get ourselves, acquainted, Chairperson and honorable members, with the vulnerabilities and risks that happen on online platforms, which have been a blind spot for a very long time. And that's where the sexual grooming of children has been taking place. But I think the report that was submitted to Minister is also saying that that's where bullying and secondary victimization and re-traumatization of children happens. In those WhatsApp groups that are established in schools, that's where a lot of these things are happening or taking place, and also how they connect then also on social media platforms. And we do have the standard operating procedures that guide how, as a sector, we should be dealing with the issue, particularly of educators who are found guilty of sexual misconduct, and how then the dismissal and the removal from the register and all of those things is to be facilitated. In terms of the legislative framework, the Criminal Law Amendment Act, particularly the provisions contained in Section 54 about mandatory reporting, they are there. And Section 45 also then is talking about the registration in the National Register for Sex Offenders of employers who are employing people who would be working with, vulnerable groups in particular. And it is the duty of the employer to do this. And we've accepted that as basic education, that it is the duty of the employer to do this. But the access to this register, when we talk about the register later on in the slides, we'll get to appreciate some of the challenges that the basic education sector is experiencing in discharging its duty on ensuring that the checks and the vetting and the registration against the National Register for Sex Offenders is actually taking place. The Children's Act is also another one that guides us, particularly around the vetting and the registration against the National Child Protection Register, and it is administered by the Department of Social Development. We have made a lot of strides. Again, when we talk about it later, you will hear Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members.
All right, man. Is my DVD ready for collection?
Please, Mr. Rahim.
What do you mean?
Okay. Thank you so much, Chairperson. We've made some strides in, creating ways of working with the Department of Social Development to fast track the vetting of our educators against this register. The Employment of Educators Act, Schedule 2, that speaks to misconduct and dismissal of educators who have sexual relations with learners in the same school. And as well as the SACE Act and the Code of Professional Ethics that actually prohibits sexual relations between educators and learners. Now, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members, this is something that we think Parliament needs to note, and it's something that we have been engaging about with our Minister as well, to say that the Employment of Educators Act is qualifying this situation, and it says that no educator is to have a sexual relation with a learner from the same school. But the SACE Act is not qualifying it with that with that expression that says in the same school. It's just across the board. So that means that when charges are leveled against a teacher, charges of sexual misconduct, if that child is not from the same school, we should not be using the Employment of Educators Act, because then it has got this loophole that we feel Parliament needs to note, and that the charges then would have to be against against the SACE Act, because at least it doesn't have the qualifying statement in the same school. And so I think that's what we need to note. And if there's work in Parliament that we would need to do to remove that statement in the same school, that would be wonderful. We need to do that. But at least we are not in a position where we can't touch, at least honorable chairperson and members, we can still touch nonetheless. The basic education sector response then to the report was that on the 12th of
My
May,
apologies.
we received.
Sorry, my apologies. There is a slight echo coming through. Just please, if you can check, Mr. Liko, if there's something that's happening with your device, because there's an echo.
I'm not sure, Chairperson, could it be that maybe the honorable members or other people attending the meeting
No,
who have...
it's much better now.
Yeah.
It's much better now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. So on the 12th of May, then, we had the transversal meeting that I was talking about, which was convened by the Office of the Director General, and we assessed the current position against each of the 7 recommendations that are there. Fortunately, at the time when we were dealing with the report, it was also at the time when the Net Joints for Gender-Based Violence and Femicide was also requesting progress reports from various departments. So the report that we had then put together, which was signed off by the minister, was submitted both to Parliament and the Net Joints on GBVF. We had different structures attending that meeting, people from teacher development, education management, information systems, inclusive education, particularly on the work around district-based support teams and school-based support teams who would need to be involved in how we improve our efficacies for access to services, which I had pointed out as a greatest need for the basic education sector. Education management and governance development, work with districts, circuits and principals and SGBs and the representative councils of learners. Education Labor Relations Council, and when we looked at the recommendations, honorable members, we really discovered that there are quite a lot of intersectional and cross-sectional shared mandates between our department and other departments like the DSD, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, SAPS, SACE, and civil society. And I think the report was, stating very strongly the need for the basic education sector to work closely with civil society, because the report says civil society is close to the face, or is at the face of the trouble of statutory rape in our country. These were the 7 recommendations that we had. The first one was talking about the compliance, monitoring and sanctions for mandatory reporting. The second one on on strict codes of conduct for staff and learners and third-party interactions. The other one was speaking to cluster-based social worker posts integrated into the school governance structures. The other one was talking about vetting and regulation of all adults working in schools. The other one was talking to increased resourcing of SACE and the ELRC. And the 6th one was talking about multi-sectoral real-time child protection data integration. And the last one was talking about fast removal of convicted offenders from the system. So on the first one, our current position is that Section 54 of the Sexual Offences Act obliges reporting of suspected cases, not just cases that are reported, even suspected cases. I think it's important to note. And therefore, it also says that non-compliance is a criminal offense that can lead up to 5 years of imprisonment. So non-compliance of mandatory reporting is actually a criminal offense. And this is a message, a very clear and strong message that has echoed in our sector all the way to our schools. Schedule 2 of the Employment of Educators Act also speaks to non-compliance, and it says that non-compliance is in fact a misconduct. And we are agreeing with the report that it is a misconduct and it needs to be, implemented, and there needs to be sanctions against our employees who are not reporting as they should, and it can even lead to dismissal. There is a clear reporting pathway that exists in the protocol for the management reporting of sexual abuse and harassment in schools. It moves from the learner to the principal to SAPS, and then if it is an educator that is alleged, then it would also go to the ELRC. But we're also finding, honorable members, that this pathway was right and good at the time when it was established, because it was establishing a pathway of reporting where there was none. But now we realize that, firstly, if the trouble of the child who is reporting sexual abuse is actually with the school principal, as you have found in many of the cases that we've dealt with, then it means then that that report is going to stop at the level of the principal. Therefore, we needed to then do some work in loosening the pathway so that it is not one-dimensional, that it is multidimensional, that a child, in keeping with the Children's Act, can report to just about anyone that they trust, not just the one-dimensional pathway that we had created at the time, because at the time we were trying to assist a challenge where there was no pathway. And so we are aware of that. And some of the gaps that we have there is that, we do have educators who are employed by SGBs in our schools. And so that by design means that the SGB is the employer of that teacher. But our engagements with our SGB associations have actually led to us, or to an understanding that SGBs are actually disputing their status as employers. And for us as basic education, this creates an accountability ambiguity, because for those that we employ through our systems and mechanisms, we are able to account for those, but the vetting of those teachers. So by design, if an SGB appoints a teacher, the SGB that appoints that teacher should be ensuring that that teacher is also vetted. This is work that we're trying to resolve and to align on with our SGB associations. The Section 15(2) of the Employment of Educators Act states that if an educator's name is struck off the official register kept by SACE, that educator is deemed to have resigned the day after the removal. So if the name of the educator is struck off the roll, there is no place for that educator in a school, and there is no reason why that teacher is still working even though they are struck off the roll. That's the position. And so what we have committed to do is that we would be sending out circular to provinces reinforcing Section 54 and Schedule 2 obligations for mandatory reporting. Would also then redistribute the revised reporting protocol with digital training materials as well, because having found that the one-dimensional pathway of reporting was problematic for children, we then thought that then it's time to revise it, and revise it very quickly, so that children are not locked in this pathway. So we're revising it, and we're almost done at revising it. We got assistance from the United Nations agencies operating in our country to do this fairly quickly. So we'll redistribute it together with our digital training materials then. Would also then engage with SACE so that we can strengthen the sanctions for dereliction of reporting duty. We've had so many questions from members of the portfolio committee around this, asking the minister, what is the minister doing about principals or teachers who are not reporting, who are not upholding mandatory reporting? And so, yes, we are working with provincial education departments, but we think that also SACE has got a role to play so that we can strengthen the sanctions around this issue. And of course, we have also then established a way of working in the Bargaining Council of the ELRC to ensure that compliance issue is a standing item in the Bargaining Council, and that we can have regularized compliance sessions in that area, so that then teacher unions can also then go back into their constituencies to really capacitate their members around this issue of mandatory reporting, because it is a criminal offense. Codes of conduct for staff and learners. We've got an exemplar code of conduct that we are developing, as you know, guided by the South African Schools Act. And that exemplar code of conduct, though, only speaks to learners, because the code of conduct for educators is contained in another document, which is called the Code of Ethics, which was published by SACE. And so the exemplar code of conduct for schools cannot then speak to the code of conduct of staff. It only speaks to the code of conduct, or rather to the conduct of learners. We also have the online safety guidelines, which address digital risks, as I've already indicated in my initial slide about sexting, sexual grooming. And these were only designed to capacitate learners, but not necessarily to govern staff conduct. Because I think what the report was saying was that there is conduct of our staff which is hidden on the online platforms. And so we need to do something about this as well. Cyberbullying prevention workshops have been taking place, both for learners and teachers. And the gap here is that the electronic communication between staff and learners is not yet an explicit item in the exemplar code of conduct. And it's easy then this is a gap that is easy to close, because we are currently finalizing the exemplar code of conduct, taking inputs from the South African Human Rights Commission. And it is easy for the department to then just ensure that the electronic communication matters are included in that exemplar code of conduct. And also for SACE, the newly appointed educators are being provided now with the code of professional ethics once they assume duty. Because what we're finding, just as a side note, honorable members, is that particularly with younger teachers who start working at school, let's say 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, maybe 24-year-olds, there is a higher risk of sexual misconduct where they end up having sexual relations with children because they're very close to their age. And so that's why it was important for us to focus on newly appointed learners, because we identified where the probability and the risk is in terms of this. So we provide this now for newly appointed educators. Our committed actions, we're saying that we need to verify the explicit staff learner third-party electronic communication provisions in that exemplar code of conduct, which we have, and we found that it is not there, and we're adding it in there. And so we also want to position the online safety guidelines as a governance instrument, because at the moment, they are just guidelines that are used by our officials in districts who are responsible for school safety. But we want to hand it over to our education management and governance development, so that district directors, circuit managers, SGBs, school management teams all use this online safety guideline as a governance instrument in their schools. We want to issue a supplementary guidance note that is aligned to the protocol and the SACE ethics code, just as a reminder and as a reaffirmation of the position of the basic education sector on this issue, so that it's not just left on those documents. Even if it's just a letter or a note or a video clip that comes from the minister, something like that, which that says, as we start the year, we remind you of your duty as educators, that this and that and that, and then we just state it, just as a matter of restating that issue, because we want to keep the conversation going, so that we are also not sensational in our approach of advocacy and mobilization. And we would also then add the code of conduct compliance as a provincial school safety monitoring indicator, because right now we didn't have a way of monitoring this, but now that it has been included in this report, we are committing then to say that we'll continue to monitor, our schools, in our school safety monitoring, the code of conduct compliance. The cluster-based social worker posts issue. Social workers sit at a district level at the moment as part of the district-based support team. And some provinces cluster these by circuits, particularly with Gauteng and Western Cape. Gauteng and Western Cape are the only two provinces at the moment who have managed to locate social workers at a cluster level. Sometimes they call them clusters, sometimes they call them local education offices, and sometimes they call them circuits, depending on which provinces you're at, but it is the level below a district. So these are the only two provinces at the moment that have managed to do this. Other provinces are really still trying, and they're really just, the social workers are sitting at a district level. The DBE resourcing guidelines for inclusive education, though, recommend a social worker per circuit or per cluster or per local education office. That's our ideal that we have set for ourselves, with all things considered, mainly the availability of people. Secondly, the availability of financial resources to do this. And what should be noted is that even though we've got social workers in basic education, but statutory rape case management becomes a DSD function. And so the social worker who is in education does not have jurisdiction to preside or manage cases of statutory rape. And therefore, they need to hand those over to the social worker who is sitting with social development. And so they facilitate that referral. And the gap that we have is that, in actual fact, there are more than 9,000 social workers who are unemployed, yet we don't have the funding mechanisms to ensure that we create new posts so that we can then continue our deployment of social workers in our clusters or circuits or local education offices, as it has already been indicated. So we have committed to participate actively in the DSD-led presidential process, which we were told at the time when we presented the report that the next session would happen in June of 2026, towards a treasury funding bid, so that we can have, and we had this meeting. It was co-chaired by the Acting Director General of Social Development and our Deputy Director General this side, who's responsible for sector care and support services. We had this conversation already. And I must indicate to honorable members that that conversation left us with more anxiety than hope, because it looks like we still have a long way to go in ensuring that we galvanize financial support for us as the basic education sector to be able to deploy social workers. It sounded in that engagement that there was an expectation that the Department of Basic Education would have to be inward looking in finding the resources. And I need not iterate the point that we, as the basic education sector, we don't have the funds to create these posts. And so we are going to be engaging continually with the Department of Social Development until we can find a sweet spot where we can then say, even if we start with 1,000 more posts nationally, that would count for something, because at least we'd be progressing from where we are at the moment. The second thing that we want to do is that we also, as the basic education sector, because there has been quite a rigorous and turbulent appointment of, we call them education specialists, senior education specialists, who are appointed as psychologists, as therapists, as social workers, you name it, in the districts. And that work has happened quite turbulently, and to a point where at the moment we've got no data that we can say, okay, this is where we're sitting at the moment, and we're requesting that from our provinces at the moment so that we have a sense of what has happened ever since we made the call for deployment and up to now. And we know that even now, districts and provinces are continuing to appoint the social workers. We'll get a sense of how we're doing, and we can have a GIS mapping representation of how we're doing there. And then we can scale the intermediary training because we've been training, but we only trained in 3 provinces for now, working with ELRC, the DST, and the DOJ and CD, so that then we've got sufficient human capacity in our provincial education departments for people who are able to act as intermediaries. Vetting and regulation of school staff. We have 2 registers, as honorable members may be aware, the National Child Protection Register and the National Register for Sex Offenders. And at the time when we came to our portfolio committee last year, our portfolio committee members for basic education will recall, we reported that we were sitting at 40,000. And ever since then, when we were preparing for a reply to this report, there was a slight progression from 40,000 to 51,000. I know that it is still a fraction and a drop in an ocean when you look at the denominator of plus minus 500,000 educators who need to be vetted. And so what we have done then was to just ensure that we create systems and mechanisms by training people on the ground who would then be able to vet at least against the National Child Protection Register, because that one is easier. It is accessible to us. And so we're able to vet if we've got enough people across the country that are able to do this. And we'll start with educators, and then we'll move to non-educator staff members as well. We also have got the Teddy Bear Foundation settlement, which requires provinces to verify all staff against the National Child Protection Register by the end of the financial year 2025-2026, which would be 31 March. We are hoping that would really come back by the end of March to say that all 500,000 educators are at least vetted against the National Child Protection Register. And then, of course, the National Register for Sex Offenders is a much more locked and tighter register, but there's work that is underway to ensure that we loosen that. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development capacity constraints are, of course, a challenge with regard to that National Register for Sex Offenders. But also there's the POPI Act now that restricts, direct access to the register. We also have got no feedback, because once we vet, the generation of the report of vetting would be a back-end function that happens at DSD. We also then need to create that loop back to us so that we're able to report on how we are journeying or how we are faring with the vetting. We have at the moment established continuous periodic meetings with the Department of Social Development that happen monthly. So in those meetings, we use then those meetings to get a sense of how far we are doing with the vetting. And we will sort out in our engagements with the National Consultative Forum of SGB associations, we will sort out the dispute of employer status of SGBs. It will be sorted out. The minister has already, because at the time when we were writing the report, the minister had not yet engaged with the Minister of Justice. But since the report was submitted, the minister has already engaged with the Minister of Justice on the limited scope that we find ourselves in vis-a-vis the POPI compliance issues on this register. And she has asked for a meeting. And she said to the Justice Minister that in that meeting, it must not just be a ministerial meeting, but all the officials that are responsible for the functionality of this vetting must be present in that meeting, because we want to sort this out once and for all. And so we're still awaiting the Minister of Justice to confirm with us the date of that meeting. And we're also then formally flagging the issues, because when we were with our portfolio committee the last time on this issue earlier in the year, they did indicate that where there are cases of support that are required from Parliament to enable us to discharge our duties on this, we need to bring those to Parliament so that Parliament can also do the work that it can do to support us. And we're saying that we've engaged at the official level. The ministers are also aiming to engage at the ministerial level. And we're requesting that maybe the next engagement should invite the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, so that even at the level of a Parliament, we can have a kind of commitment that helps us to deal with this challenge. We have sent out a directive to provinces regarding the compliance reporting matter. And as we've said, we will continue to send that at the beginning of every year. And we have requested a formal DSD feedback mechanism beyond the meetings that we have in our process or progress, rather, on the register. Resourcing of SACE and the ELRC. I think it's something. There's a whole lot of things that are going wrong in our country about sexual abuse perpetrated against women and children and other vulnerable groups. But here, Chairperson and honorable members, this is a very good story to tell. In fact, the South African Human Rights Commission report that was recently published on sexual violence in schools has also this finding that the work that we have done as a sector, working with ELRC to centrally process all educator sexual misconduct cases via inquiry by arbitrator, is probably the best thing that has happened, because what that has done, it has seen a lot of movement on the cases that have been reported. What we're also finding is that we have now been able to limit the re-traumatization and the secondary victimization of children who are victims of sexual abuse, because we come from a history where they needed to tell and retell their story all the time, to a point where it even becomes harmful to the victim. And so now, through this process, they only deliver their testimony once on camera in front of the inquiry by arbitrator, and that is used for all processes, whether it's disciplinary process or criminal justice process, because that child only speaks once rather than many times. And I think that's a something to mention, which is a movement from the historical harmful ways of working that we had before. Intermediary partnerships with DSD and DOJ, as I've already indicated, that work, that training particularly has happened in 3 provinces, and we've got a plan of then going to all provinces so that this happens in all provinces. The gap that we have is that for these centrally processed cases, we need court facilities. And sometimes court facilities are not available to the ELRC, and therefore that stifles the efforts that they are making in ensuring that these cases are processed quicker. And so the shortage of child-friendly facilities is a problem. Trauma-informed hearing venues that I'm already indicating about. So therefore, what this means is that many of these cases then get to be postponed. And so also the SACE DBE financial resources engagement has started, and it has not yet concluded, because we need to identify where we're going to do cutbacks and reorganization and reallocation so that SACE can can be better resourced than it is at the moment. And so we have committed to then continue this engagement with face, of course, with timelines, and we've also committed to quantify the child-friendly hearing venue infrastructure needs. Because it is one thing to come to Parliament to say ELRC is saying that they can't process these cases because there are no venues, but we need to quantify what that looks like so that we can then come back to say, this is what it looks like. There's a need in Northern Cape, for example, and there's a need for either a totally new structure or a refurbishment of an existing structure, or the infrastructure is there, but maybe there is no digital technology in that infrastructure, something like that. So this is work that we have committed to do with our provinces. We wanted to also present a consolidated resourcing case linked to the treasury bit that I was talking about, especially now that GBVF has been classified as a national disaster. We think that we've got a much more stronger case when we go back to Treasury, for Treasury to hear us about some of the proposals we're making for us to be able to get more funding, to be able to do these things properly. The national rollout, I've already spoken about uncovered provinces, and the newly constituted council at SACE is also finalizing the job evaluation process so that it can also then assist with the human resource gap that we're finding. And on the multi-sectoral data integration, this one, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, is the most difficult to distill because, firstly, we are not even sure whether we've got the legal and legislative mandate to have what the report is proposing to us. Because the report is saying that have one data and information management system, various departments, meaning DBE, DSD, DOJ, DOH, and all these other departments. Even the report says even civil society. That's what it says. Have one data set or one information system. And I think that was coming from our interactions with the different portfolio committees, where we're saying that, once we transfer the case to the police, or we transfer the case to the DSD social worker, as the basic education, we remain blindfolded about what then happens to that case. And I think it was an information management tragedy that was identified, because all you can do is to refer the case to the police, to refer the case to social development, or maybe to health, where there is still some work that needs to be provided by health, but that's as far as it goes. And so it says that have one so that you are able to tell us that if Liko Bottoman was raped and the case was submitted or was reported, you are able to say how far the case is. For example, has there been any arrests that have been made? Has there been any help or post-violence care provided or psychosocial support provided to that child? Has there been any home visits? Blah, blah, blah. All of those things that need to be in place, we're unable to say. So it is very difficult because, firstly, we're not even sure whether we do have the legal and legislative backing to do this. However, through the NISPIS process that is led by DSD, which manages the social protection data system, we are exploring ways of including, even if it's a couple of modules or indicators that we can put there that will help us to be at least 1 foot in the ideal situation that has been presented by the report. We're testing proof of concept, particularly with ECD centers. Honorable members may be aware that some of the sexual abuse cases that happen in our sector happen even in ECD centers. And we're testing proof of concept and with the eCares data management system to see if we can't then integrate also indicators that speak to sexual abuse management or case management. SASM, as the DPE's core school data system, is also another area where we can see opportunity. but at the moment, it has no fields for sexual offense case management tracking. And we'll try and include this in the SASAMs. But of course, honorable members and honorable chairperson, we are hearing this within the context that says that we are not even sure about the feasibility and the practicality and the legality of what we're about to do. The POPI Act restrictions are there as an issue that needs to be sorted out. And so we want to invite, we have committed to invite the information regulator to engage with us so that we can then say, what would be the roadmap and the pathway of resolving this issue of data management and information system? What would be the way that would be within the limits of the law? And when we do that roundtable engagement, all the other departments, DSD, Women, DOJ, SAPS, Health, will also be invited so that we are all mindful of each other's blind spots and gaps. And so that we can then assess formally the POPI constraints issue so that we can then raise them again with Parliament where they are. So we're going to assess them properly so that it's not just an issue that is reported just by this report, but we can say what exactly about POPI Act that is limiting a continuum of case management for sexual abuse cases. I think I've already indicated it, so I don't need to repeat myself. I'm almost at the end of my presentation. This is probably the last recommendation. ELRC awards will then trigger dismissal directives, because once the ELRC awards, that award then is provided to provincial education departments as the employers of educators, so that then that work of blocking, which Minister was talking about when she was saying that it can't be that you are found guilty here and then you are re-emerging elsewhere and you still are able to get employed. Some work needs to happen, and our standard operating procedure now that we have established with ELRC allows us to actually block that person. And so we're doing that right now. And I think it's a good movement. Again, the South African Human Rights Commission report on sexual violence in schools has identified this as another positive spin-off of the work that we've been doing together. Yes, of course, then the standard operating procedures that we have already been presented to the SGB associations, because we're trying to eat away from the dispute that the SGB associations, or the SGBs rather, are not the employers. So we've presented the SOPs to them so that they understand what it would entail when you say that you are facilitating a vetting of an official who has been appointed. We are seeing a gap with reinstatements through courts, because we understand that after some time, there is a situation where after a while, some educators, either who were alleged or who were found guilty, are then, reinstated. And we're also then seeing that this is a gap that we'll need to manage, as Minister has already indicated. And the commitments that we have made was that we would formalize the monitoring against, the SOPs, so that if we get a list of the awards from the ELRC, we don't just leave it to the provincial education departments to dismiss and remove and block. We must have a loop back to us that says that of the 5 cases that you presented to us, of the 5 awards, we are happy to say that 100% of them have been processed accordingly with the standard operating procedures. And provincial reports are going to be including these statistics, so that we have got real-time data as we move along. As I've already indicated about the SGBs, we're doing that. And we are going to be engaging further regarding the legal constraints about reinstatement of educators. And also want to explore the restricting reinstatement to child-facing roles, particularly not just educators, but we're also going to be looking at non-educator staff, as I've already indicated. So for us to be able to block the educators who are found guilty, we have to agree, again with the information regulator, we have to agree whether we're going to use the ID or we're going to use the personal number, but we've got to use an identifier of a personal information of that person for us to be able to block that person from being re-employed. And yeah, and I think just as a way of summarizing some of the gaps that we are faced with as the basic education sector, which we are planning to address. In fact, we are already in the process of addressing is the data integration story, is the POPI Act constraint story, is the vetting capacity story, and it's also the resourcing story that we've already stated. I don't want to restate it because I feel like I've been speaking for too long. And we are saying, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, that we are going to be providing annual progress reports as already indicated in the report, because the report is saying that we need to report annually. Maybe this joint sitting, the honorable members and the different portfolio committees can then use it as a space where we can always come at least once a year to state how we are doing about all of these gaps and all of these commitments that we have made, which we are going to be addressing jointly with the various departments that are involved in this work. So this is a recommendation that the Joint Portfolio Committee then notes and accepts the briefing by the Department of Basic Education on and the progress on some of the recommendations that have been stated in that report. Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Botterman, and to the team from the department for the presentation. We will now allow honorable members to have deliberations and questions. And maybe just before I allow that, I just want to just say that the presentation, Mr. Botterman and the team, obviously what it does is it indicates that there is an existing policy and legislative framework already, but also it identifies gaps between the framework and its effective implementation. And I think of particular concern are the pace of the vetting of educators and other adults working in schools, weaknesses in the integrated case tracking and also information sharing, and the resourcing of obviously SACE and the ERLC, and also ensuring that persons who pose a danger to our children are effectively prevented from returning to child-facing environments. So I think members, therefore, wish to interrogate, I think, not only the mechanisms, but also whether they are working effectively and where accountability lies when they do not, and what concrete timelines have been set for addressing the gaps that has been identified today. And so with that, thank you very much for the briefing, and I would like to open the floor to honorable members for questions and deliberations. I also would like to ask that our questions, members, are concise and to the point. So if I can have an indication, and then we can then start that process. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, I'm not sure if you can see the hands, but I have on the platform the hands from Honorable Jordan, Honorable Mkhize, and Honorable Ishmael.
Okay, Honorable Jordan, Honorable Mkhize, and Honorable Ishmael. Are there any other hands? If not, can we start with those three honorable members? Honorable Jordan.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Let me apologize for not switching on my video. I am unfortunately in transit, but I did not want to miss the opportunity to speak on this incredibly important issue. Honourable Chair, I'd like to welcome the presentation that's been made by the Minister and her department. It's really clearly a very strong deep dive into the challenges facing our collective departments and especially the Department of Basic Education with this issue. And I'd also like to welcome the iteration that the Minister has sternly requested a meeting with the Minister of Justice around vetting via the Sexual Offence Register. This is a critical issue, and we'd like to please appeal to the Minister to include the challenge of court facilities that the presenter has mentioned earlier, and to push that this meeting actually takes place post-haste. Honourable Chair, the vetting of educators is central to this issue, as you mentioned. FEDSAS had also revealed in their study that an alarming percentage of educators have not been vetted, and we welcome the 2027 deadline that the department had recently committed to in terms of vetting all educators. Chair, the law requires that all persons working with minors must be vetted against the National Child Protection Register, yet learners are still sexually assaulted in various institutions of their schooling. Crime stats even highlighting that young children in ECD centers are assaulted by educators and staff. And in theory, the registers are there, the legislation is there, but the enforcement is lacking. And the sexual offense register is locked down, while parents and civil society are saying, make it public so we can protect our kids. Bar teachers are circumventing vetting by taking advantage of the loopholes and backlogs in addressing transgressions to the Educator's Guide of Ethics by SAYS is a serious problem. Chair, the National School Safety Framework is there, but enforcement is lacking. And with that said, Chair, the issues are articulated, the commitments are made, but the timelines and performance measurement metrics are not there in this presentation. Could we kindly be provided with this in writing or in our next engagement so that accountability can be enforced? And lastly, I'd like to welcome the whole of government and whole of society approach that to this issue that affect the lives of learners on a very sensitive and deeply personal level, the urgency with which the Minister is addressing the safety of learners.
Honourable Jordan, are you still there?
Yes, I've concluded. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We're then handing over to Honourable Mkhize. Honourable Mkhize, are you on the platform?
Yes, Chairperson, I'm here, but for some reasons, my gadget is freezing on me. But I'm doing my best because I need to make this contribution, Chairperson. And Chairperson, respectfully, my lady, I think you have chaired the most unproductive meeting, whereby we are not giving progress updates, but we are just listening to political opening statements by the ministers and there are no results. It is not a first meeting, Chairperson. We can't be discussing the frameworks. We are going to narratives. This is a point where we should be discussing outcomes that have already been seen from the initiatives that were introduced to us in the previous meeting. In the previous meeting, we were told about a lot of initiatives, a lot of strategies to deal with statutory rape in the communities. Today, you are coming to listen to other set of frameworks, other set of aspirations, but no tangible, practical results to show progress. How we are really helping these vulnerable adolescent girls and young women to move away from the perpetrators, to see the perpetrators dealing with their tendencies of being the vultures in the learning institutions. We are to listen to political statements. We are the politicians. The department must give us executive reports. They mustn't come here and talk like politicians and listen to their own voices. We need to know what they have done and what results they've seen from what they have done to show the change on the ground. Right now, Minister, we are not getting that progress report, Chairperson. That's why I'm saying without being rude. This is the most unproductive meeting because it repeats what was discussed before. It takes us to an ideal world where if things go well, we would have done that, but it doesn't give us the progress report on what is being done, simply because most of us here, our kids attend private schools, not public schools where this atrocity is happening. Why, Chairperson, only 10% of the educators were vetted? Why? 90% of them are not vetted. How do we know what percentage of this 90% is repeated serial molesters of our children in schools, the perpetrators? We don't even know who will send our kids to every day. And we are not even getting an explanation today why only 10% was vetted. All what we're hearing is that there was some progress. What progress are you talking about? You're talking about 51,000 out of 500 educators who should be voted. You call that progress. It shows that there's no understanding and appreciation of the failures by this government, the TNU government, to care for the people on the ground, to care for the learners on the ground. You can't even have audacity to call this what's called a progress. 51% over against 500,000 is a disaster. What responsibility, Chairperson, the department will take should one of these unvetted educators sexually assault, harass, or rape a learner in the public school? What responsibility the department will take? We are not hearing that because nobody cares. What has been done differently to enforce implementation and compliance with Section 110 of Children's Act 38 of 2005? We are not being told. We are told about the dreams that we listened when the president opening the sauna was telling us about a certain mountain somewhere. When are we going to start discussing the practical results of helping our kids who are being molested, violated, young girls and young women? When are we going to start hearing practical outcomes from helping them? We have to listen to Model C officials speaking fancy language, but the kids are suffering on the ground. How many educators have been successfully prosecuted in terms of criminal law, sexual offences and related matters, Amendment Act of 32 of 2007? If those perpetrators were registered under the Chapter 6, Section 22 NRRC, National Register for Sexual Offenders, and against what number of cases that were reported? That's what we should be hearing at Chairperson. How many were successfully prosecuted? How many of them went to the register? And against how many cases we've received? In that way, Chairperson would be able to honestly measure progress, yes or no. But no, we must listen to rhetorics. In the previous meeting, Chairperson, the department alleged the parents of taking bribes from the perpetrators of the minors and was guided to report such incidences to the police, as such parents are also legally bound to report any form of sexual violation. Is there any variable progress made on this one? No, we're not hearing that. We're hearing fancy voices speaking nice about a very painful matter of our kids as young as they are being molested. Understanding the alleged key role played by the parents, Chairperson, collaborating with the perpetrators, the sensitivity and the legal complexities of Section 110 and the Children's Act 38 of 2005, criminal law Act 32 of 2007, and other laws. What interventions have been made to create awareness with the parents and guidance to enable prevention and linkages to proper care and treatment? We are not getting a report on that, Chairperson. We must listen to twang by the officials who are taking their schools to private schools. I will call them white schools for the purpose of being more clear. Is there any tailor-made intervention being implemented, Chairperson, to bring relief for the adolescent girls and young women in the rural, township, and farm communities where more sexual violation and vulnerabilities are reported? That makes me emotional because the subject that we're dealing with here today is in our rural communities, in our township communities, in the farming communities, where there's poverty and abuse, even by the parents, by everyone who can just take advantage of these kids. But there's no clear reporting on this one because the approach, Chairperson, must be targeted, which means it must go where vulnerability exists. But we are not hearing that. In the previous meeting, Chairperson, the department was guided by the committee to design and coordinate a multi-sectoral stakeholders response to effectively facilitate compliance with Section 110 and the Children's Act 38 of 2005. Application of a criminal law, Act 32 of 2005, were required. And to create public awareness through community engagement. Was this successfully implemented? Yes or no? We're not getting any report on this one. We'll have to listen to plan from officials who take their children to private schools. What schools for me to be more clearer? So these are the things we should be discussing about. Lastly, Chairperson, why there is no practical implementation plan with clear scope of activities, resources, and delivery time frames if the department is serious about addressing statutory rape? So I submit to you, Chair, that this was the most wasteful meeting, very unproductive. And for this reason, I ask the DSP also here to respond, because most of the failures by the department, to speak on its behalf a little bit, is the failures of the GNU to allocate resources to DSP and other departments to be able to implement. Why the GNU is failing is because it's put to a on itself. These problems will continue up until the real lack of past people take power and allocate resources accordingly to the most vulnerable in the rural communities, farm communities, and town communities. So from now on, Chair, I'll just keep quiet because I can't waste my energy more in this meeting. I salute and submit, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mkhize. Honorable Ismail.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues and everyone on the platform. Chair, firstly, I just want to welcome this presentation and the action plans going forward. I think for the first time in years, we are seeing concrete commitments, timelines, and basically an admission of gaps from the department. I think that is positive and it's progress. Yes, we see some action plans with no timeframes, but I think from where I'm standing right now, I haven't seen a report thus far that says we know and understand these are the things that are going wrong, and this is what we're going to be doing, going forward, so that we can actually ensure that our children's lives are safer. I think our task now is to work together to ensure these plans move from paper to practice so that every learner, is safe. I just have a few questions, Chair, and related to the presentation. And my question is, how many new cases of statutory rape involving educators have been reported to the Department of Basic Education since March 2026? Could you perhaps provide a breakdown per province, just to understand in the space now? And then my second question, looking at recommendations A and B, reporting and codes, since 2025, how many principals or officials have been charged or dismissed for failing to report under Section 54? And then just on the point of SGBs, what happens to SGBs who refuse to act as employers? I mean, what is the way forward from there? And then by what date will the exemplar code explicitly ban staff learner electronic communication? And what are the sanctions that are going to be implemented? And then my third question, recommendations C and D, that is social workers and vetting. Now, DBE says that we need one social worker per circuit. How many posts did Treasury actually approve in June? And I mean, by when does the department actually, see an output where learners get a social worker within 24 hours of a case? Because I think that's where we want to go in the near future. And then my third question regarding recommendations C and D, that is social workers and vetting. You say in your presentation, only 51,000 of 500,000 educators are actually vetted against the National Register for Sex Offenders. So what is the binding deadline for 100% vetting? I just want to know, as a way forward, doing oversight, what are we looking at? And then what consequences will apply to provinces that fail to meet the Teddy Bear Foundation deadline to verify all staff against the National Child Protection Register by end 2025-2026 financial year? And then my last question, Chair, this is on recommendations E, F, and G, resources, data, and removal. Now, the ELRC cases are being postponed due to no child-friendly venues. So far, how many venues and what's the cost? And has Treasury approved funding under GBVF? I note you state that is your action plans, but have you got anything concrete to tell us now as you're doing the presentation? And then, sorry, Chair, one more question. How many educators were dismissed for sexual offences and have been re-employed in another province? I think this is very critical for us to know. And when will the ID-linked no rehire register be live? Thank you, Chair.
And thank you, Honourable Ishmael. Honourable members, are there any more hands that would like to be afforded, or members that would like to be afforded the opportunity to ask questions?
Chairperson, I do have Honourable Graham Murray.
Honourable Graham Murray, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the Minister and the Department for the presentation. I'm new to the portfolios that I'm representing today, and so I only went through the report last night, and I have to tell you, I'm absolutely heartbroken at the extent of the lack of care, the lack of support, the apathy, the absolute failure of this government against the children that we are supposed to be taking care of. I was absolutely heartbroken, I have to say, but at least it's been recognized and there are some steps being taken to address it. I just want to make some inputs that I think are quite important. One of the things that came through for me as well was, I mean, even on scholar transport, our children are being abused. It's just, it doesn't matter where they go, there are these people waiting to hurt them. It's absolutely devastating. Now, scholar transport doesn't fall under Department of Education. It falls under the provincial departments of ordinarily of roads in the Eastern Cape. It falls under the Department of Roads and Transport. Are we reaching out to those departments? Are we looking at including scholar transport as one of the focal areas in our conversations? So that was one of the questions that came through just from the report. The other thing is with respect to social workers. I come from an area in the Eastern Cape, which is predominantly Afrikaans speaking. We have a high 80% of our population in our area is coloured people. But obviously in the Eastern Cape, the demographics are very different to that portion of the Eastern Cape. What we are finding is that the social workers that are being assigned to that area where I come from cannot speak Afrikaans. So where we have incidents where kids are being abused at school or they're having problems at home, we have no social workers that can actually speak to them in their own language. So I do think that is something that needs to be looked at quite seriously. We cannot have people offering to support these children who then cannot understand what they're saying or provide support in a language that these kids understand. With respect to the SGBs, again, it's fine in your bigger areas, in your cities and that, where there's large populations. But in small towns, the SGBs are very politicized, number one. Number two, they are often friends and relatives of the educators. So there is an element of protection that happens with these SGBs in your smaller areas. It's the same with all the services in smaller areas, because everybody knows everybody. It's sometimes very, very hard to hold people accountable. So that becomes problematic. And even in cases where you have children that are being abused by their parents, there's protection because, the parent is the breadwinner, the parent is a friend of the police, the parent is a police, the parent is a teacher. So we have to find ways around A, the politicization of the SGBs, and B, the SGBs protecting friends and family. So I think very, very clear sort of rules and reporting structures are going to have to be implemented if we're going to get around that sort of thing. I think the Poppy Act has been one of the worst things we've ever done in this country. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've never had so many unsolicited calls in my life as I'm getting now, and we have the Poppy Act. So clearly it's not working. And what it is doing is it's becoming a mechanism for people to hide behind to avoid sanction, to avoid being reported, to avoid being held accountable. And I really think that engagement with the DOJ and CD has to be done, and we have to reinforce that the interests, the best interests of the child has to be paramount to any form of protection of information, and that the POPI Act can no longer be used to prevent us reporting, to prevent us holding people accountable. We cannot continue to protect people's information at the cost of children's lives. So I do think that when the minister has that engagement with the DOJ, this has to be very, very strongly put forward. If you are committing unsufferable acts towards a child, you have no right of protection of information. I'm terribly sorry. And I know we have constitutional rights, but I do believe that the rights of the child should be paramount. And then obviously the rest is really going to be about integration amongst the departments. And I do think that ongoing interdepartmental meetings like this are absolutely critical, so that we can make sure that what we're getting from one department aligns with what we're getting from another department, to make sure that we are holding all the departments accountable together. Because often if you're meeting in isolation, you don't know what's being said in one meeting when you don't know what's being done by another department. And I think, you know, for the first time, we're starting to see the breaking down of silos, where departments are realizing that most things that we deal with as a government are cross-cutting, and you can't work in one department where there's impact on others. So I think we need to continue to have these, and this should probably be a standing meeting, possibly once a quarter, where these departments get together and give feedback on what they're doing. I think it's absolutely critical. And then finally, I do think that one of the things we do need to bring in is the reporting of sexual offences against children aged 0 to 10. It's horrific that we don't have those statistics because there's no requirement to report on that. So I'm hoping that possibly through the ECDs and various other mechanisms, including our clinics, that we start making sure that is done. Also, just one last thing that absolutely horrified me was the fact that healthcare workers did not think that it was important to report children under the age of 16 who were coming for treatment for STIs. At the end of the day, if a child has an STI, they are having sex, and that should be reported. So, I mean, I know that's a Department of Health issue, but I do believe that should be mandatory reporting. I think the reference in the report was, if somebody comes in with a gunshot wound, they are required to report it. Why is it not being done with respect to STIs? So, and I think legal consequences for non-reporting should be done across the board. We have to start enforcing this kind of protection, because clearly it's not happening organically. The last thing I want to say on this is that in GBVF and in this case, a lot of the focus is on talking to victims. Great, we need to prepare our victims and make sure that they can protect themselves. We have to start doing more around the perpetrators. We have to start naming and shaming. We have to start making it undesirable for perpetrators to commit these acts. We have to find the socioeconomic reasons and the psychological reasons why these acts are being perpetrated, because clearly there are causation things that we are not looking at as a country as to why the prevalence of GBVF and things like statutory rape is so high. So it's great that our focus is on victims, but sometimes I think we're talking to the wrong people. And I think we have to find mechanisms where, even in our schools, we are having conversations with boy children and talking to them about what it means to be a decent man and a good man and somebody who doesn't do this. Not that women are not doing it, but I do think that we need to start having a much stronger focus on building good men in this country instead of creating frightened women. So I think that's something that we need to look at in terms of the curriculum, is how do we start building good men at home, at school, and in other environments. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Honourable Graeme-Marais. Colleagues, there are no further hands indicated. So I would like to thank the honourable members for your questions and for your contributions. I want to hand back to the department to respond on the matters raised. And I would, in this instance, particularly like to ask the department, where members have raised questions around commitments contained in the presentation, to please provide us with the clear timelines for implementation. because I do believe that as a committee, we need to be able to measure the progress against these commitments. And so it's important that we understand not only what will be done, but by when, who will be responsible, and how progress will be reported to Parliament. I want to also maybe kindly request that in the department's response that you may, for purposes of structure and time, that you maybe possibly cluster related questions in your responses, but please also ensure, very importantly, that all substantive matters that's been raised by members are addressed. And then in conclusion, I would like to just say that the issues of the fact that the meeting with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development must happen. I want to thank the department and minister for already reaching out and for requesting that meeting to happen. Honorable Graham Maria, the suggestion of a standing meeting, I think it's quite important. But honorable members, you have raised very important questions, and I would like now to invite the department to respond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And again, thank you to the members for the constructive engagement. We had indicated right at the beginning of the meeting that this is an incredibly sensitive matter, one that requires us not to politicize the matter, but to have a deep, long look at ourselves as a country, how we are responding to the scourge, and how best to deal with it. And so if you'll allow me and indulge me a little bit, Chair, I would like to perhaps take a bit of a step back. The step back being that when we came to present to the portfolio of basic education, we were presenting solely on the work that we as a department are doing to deal with violence in schools, sexual violence in schools, the vetting of teachers. And so when honorable members like Honorable Mkhize are raising issues around the fact that, but, you know, you had these protocols in place and the like, now we want to see real movement. The truth of the matter is, yes, if we were to look at the response of the DBE and we were to separate ourselves from the remainder of the government, yes, we could very well, for compliance sake, and for us to appear as being very productive on this platform in Parliament, we could very well come and present what it is that we are doing. But as many honorable members have said in this meeting, that the issue of sexual violence and gender-based violence and violence in general in our country is not something that can be dealt by one department alone. It's not something that can even be dealt by government alone. It is a societal issue that seeps into the very fiber of who we are as a people. And as a result, what we are dealing with here, honorable members, is not a discipline issue. It's not a code of conduct issue. It's not whether or not the vetting is taking place or not taking place. What we are dealing with here is a country that has been besieged by a gender-based violence crisis, one that has even been elevated to being a national disaster. And so when you're looking at a departmental level approach, of course we can come here, Honorable Mkhize, and say, this is what we've done, and this is what we as a department have done. And let me tell you, let me take you through what some of the things as a department we've done. Our protocol with the South African Police Service is working extremely well. We have done searches and seizures. We've got safety committees in our schools. Those safety committees are doing everything they can. They comprise of SGB members. They comprise of people in the community. They comprise of people within the staff complement of the school. All of that is to make sure that the safety protocol actually finds relevance and it actually finds resonance within individual schools. But this is simply not enough because some, as Mr. Bottoman has said, some of these cases are not happening in schools. Yes, of course, the crime stats are revealing something incredibly worrying about learner-on-learner violence in our schools, which is why I think Honorable Graham Marie's point about, yes, I start addressing not only just the victims, but the perpetrators, including young men and young boys. And that is something that we are actively doing as a department. But some of these cases are not happening just in our schools.
they're happening in communities, they're happening in homes, and then they find expression, of course, in our schools, because schools are not separate from what is going on in communities. And that is why in our presentation today, we haven't come here to talk about what the DBE is doing, because there's a reason why the portfolio committee sought to get social development in the room, women, children, and persons with disabilities in the room, and all of these other departments, because ultimately the government response has to be coordinated. And so what we presented today was a coordinated analysis of what we are seeing across the board. And let me make an example. While yes, provincial education departments may be the employers of teachers, the vetting of teachers does not sit with the Department of Basic Education. It sits with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, and the Child Protection Register sits with DSD. So we become the recipient department, and we have to rely on processes that these two departments use, which is why we've approached constitutional development to say, how can we work together better to make sure that the vetting is going by quickly? Of course, Honorable Mkhize, we don't condone at all the low numbers of vetting that we have amongst our teachers. We want to do more. But one department can be hamstrung by the processes of another, which is why today we didn't come here to talk about what DBE is doing. Today we came to talk about what it is that is a government, because of course these are children that sit within our schools. So even if they are violated in homes, in their communities, ultimately they present themselves at school. So that is what the report of statutory rape was seeking to outline. It outlined those 7 recommendations, and those 7 recommendations are not just recommendations that are to the department. They are recommendations that are saying to the entire government, what are you going to do about this, which is the protection of children? And we've been very honest about saying, here are the gaps. Here's what we've identified. We've identified the fact that there are delays in the vetting of teachers under constitutional development. We've identified the fact that it's not on the requirements at the moment are not, they are just the vetting of teachers, but not every single person who comes into contact with children. We want to rectify that. We also recognize that there's legislative lacuna that may be existing, which needs to be rectified. And we've reflected on that. We've also said there are things that we've done better, things like being victim friendly, things like making sure that children are not victimized. We've made progress in that regard, but some of these things sit in other departments. But we've got to work together, because ultimately the protection of the child is what is needed. And I would support the recommendation that has been made by Honorable Graham Murray that perhaps it might be useful to have a quarterly engagement with all 3 departments, or all 4, 5 departments, in fact, adding constitutional development, adding SAPS, and having us come to account as all these departments dealing with this matter. We also know that the GBVF national crisis is also being managed by the Minister of COGTA as a national disaster. And so then there's an opportunity there to also see where the coordinated government response is. But I also want to say that the court case, the Teddy Bear court case that was brought, the Teddy Bear Foundation court case that was brought before the department, we didn't oppose that, because ultimately we believe that the protection of the children is of paramount importance. We didn't oppose that, but we settled with the Teddy Bear Foundation by committing, despite the fact that these vetting processes are not done by us individually as a department, but we committed to a timeline, a court-mandated timeline of March 2027. So it becomes then incumbent on us to chase the other departments so that provinces can vet those teachers. So that is a hard deadline that has been set in a court of law that we are going to work day and night to make sure. That gives us 8-9 months to get that done. And so I'm assuring members that we're not here to politicize the matter, but it's also important to understand what it is that we are dealing with. What is the nature of the animal that we're dealing with here? We're not dealing here with one aspect of a department. We are dealing with a societal thing that Even members of parliament themselves, we rely on you to be advocates for us as departments and as a government in your communities, because these things are things that are happening in our communities. And so those are some of the things that we are doing. The protocol with SAPS, the court mandated deadline that we've got with the Teddy Bear Foundation, the working with social development to make sure at least the child protection register element has been covered. The work that we're going to be doing with constitutional development to make sure that we unlock the blockages where there may be. And then, of course, SACE is in the meeting, Chair. And so perhaps they can speak to, there were some questions around dismissals. I know that they've got statistics around teachers that were identified to not be suitable and how the dismissals have happened. So if you will indulge SACE to perhaps give some kind of account there. And then, of course, I'll allow the DDG then to cover any other questions that were quite specific and technical that I didn't get to. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you. Welcome to SACE. I'm sorry that I omitted to welcome you in the meeting. So I will give you an opportunity to respond to the questions that are relevant to SACE. Can I now hand over to the DGG? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the Minister for those responses as well. Chair, I think the Minister has actually covered all of these quite well. I hope that the representative from SACE could respond to those direct questions from Honourable Ishmael, but we also could commit to provide the details as a written response to the committee. I also just wanted to indicate to Honourable Gray Murray that certainly, the focus on learner transport is one of the areas that we take into account when we do this work. We work very closely with our colleagues in the various education and transport departments across the country who are responsible for that, and also that these adults will be included in the final vetting. Certainly our approach in terms of a comment about building good men is absolutely critical. Issues that we focus on through our life orientation learning area are, of course, issues of consent, issues of gender norms, and we start fairly young in terms of how we deal with those areas. The issue of the interdepartmental nature of this work is absolutely critical and are vital to building the kind of accountability that we require in the system that would allow us to eradicate this scourge from our schools and our communities. Chair, with your permission, I'm going to invite Mr. Bottoman if he wants to make some comments, and then we can hand over to the representative from SACE. Mr. Bottoman.
Thank you, Mr. Whittle. Mr. Bottoman.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chairperson, and to the honourable members for all those questions. I want to just echo Dr. Whittle's point that Minister has really covered the issues quite comprehensively. But I do want to just mention two things that are quite interesting as a cluster of a thematic issue around consequence management. I think there was a common thread from a lot of members who have spoken, or honourable members who have spoken today, about consequence management for SGBs, consequence management for principals, consequence management for provincial education departments that are not complying and so forth. And we'll look at that through our accountability structures. We've noted that. The second thing I want to speak to is the question that was raised by Honourable Graham Murray around the language of delivery of psychosocial support. I think that's quite an informed question, because when you look at the work that we do in the mother tongue-based bilingual education, we did not only focus on what happens in the classroom, we've also added elements of reforming psychosocial support so that it is provided in the language that is accessible to children. It's a long area of work, Honorable Chairperson, because we are going to have to start by developing even the literacy of psychosocial support in our different languages. Many of the emotions, for example, that children feel and all of those things do not exist in their languages. They only exist in English. And so some of these things, it's not like you can just plug and play a language. You will still need to almost like code switch or trans-language when you provide the service. But I think the point is that it can't just be provided in English. It has to be accessible. And that's what we're doing through our intervention in mother tongue-based bilingual education. Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Botterman. Can we have the representative from SACE respond?
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. I hope that you can hear me. Yes, and I have my headset on.
We can hear you, yes. There is a bit of
All
noise
right.
in the background, but we can hear you.
All right, apologies for that, Chairperson. Chairperson and the portfolio committee members, I'm Tuzana Sopecha from SACE. I want to indicate and echo what the DDG has indicated with regards to the statistics that have been requested by the Honorable Ismail. We will be able to provide those, especially how many principal and educators have been charged for not reporting, because there are some of the information that we have, so we would need to do a written response with regards to the removal from the register. Thank you, Chairperson.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes, Minister.
Yes, Minister. Would you indulge us if the Director General could please just come in just to kind of complete some of our responses?
That's not a problem. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members. My profuse apologies. I'm using my phone and I'm unable to show my video. My name is Matanzi Mamweli from the Department of Basic Education. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Just 2 points that I want to add, Honorable Chair. In the presentation, we indicated that the Minister has requested for a meeting with the Minister of Justice. I've also subsequently requested for a meeting with the acting DG of the Department of Justice so that we prepare for the meeting of the two ministers. I met with heads of education in the province last month, reminding them that the minister has set a deadline for the vetting of staff for September, end of September 2026. All heads indicated that that deadline was quite too tight and they wouldn't be able to meet it, to meet the deadline. But they, however, committed that the deadline of the 31st of March, which the minister referred to, which is in the settlement that we entered into with the Teddy Bear Foundation, will definitely be met. In fact, the unit that coordinates the data in the Department of the Vetting of Staff was pleasantly surprised in that meeting because each department had to indicate the progress that they have made in the vetting of their staff. We further agreed to meet every month to monitor the progress on the vetting of the staff. And I just thought that it would be important If additional documents are needed in terms of those meetings, whether we did meet the reports and so on, and to show progress to respond to Honorable Mkhize's concerns, we are happy to provide that. And we are even happy to provide such data on a monthly or a quarterly or a bi-monthly basis. We are collecting that data. We are working towards the deadline of the end of September and eventually the 31st of March. I thought it would just be important to provide that information because we did not provide. In terms of centers that are not child-friendly, that are used by the ELRC, because the ELRC is not on the platform, we'll get that information from them and then also forward that to your honorable committees. However, the ELRC indicated, because I was talking to the CEO as well of the ELRC, indicated that in instances where facilities do not lend themselves to equipment that are required for learners to be safe when they testify, the evidence leader becomes the intermediary. The learner doesn't get in contact with the victim, for a lack of a better word, but they use facilities such as Zoom and Teams and allow the evidence leader to be the intermediary to make sure that learners are taught. But the other information will definitely provide, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Members. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you so much, DG, for your input. I've made notes of that. I will definitely share that with the Chair once this meeting is done. We have come, members, to the end of this meeting. Minister, thank you very much. And thank you to your department for the responses, but in particular to the members who have posed questions and made contributions. That is much appreciated. I think what has emerged clearly from today's engagement is that much has been done, and that there's still a great deal that needs to be done. But importantly is this: it cannot be achieved only by the DBE alone. It requires a committed and a coordinated collective effort across all the relevant departments and stakeholders. And so, therefore, I welcome the suggestion of a quarterly standing meeting involving the relevant departments and stakeholders, because I do believe that this could provide an important mechanism for us to monitor progress, but also to identify the blockages, and importantly, to also ensure accountability across the different role players. I believe it's important that each of the respective portfolio committees continues to engage with this report, with its own area of responsibility, because in that way the commitments can be followed through across the different departments, while I believe collectively we remain focused on the same objective. So ultimately, members, behind every policy, behind every protocol, and every reporting mechanism is a child whose safety, dignity, and future we have a collective responsibility to protect. If there are any outstanding reports and information that is needed, we would require the department to do so within 7 days. Other than that, thank you, members. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, DG, to the team from DBE, and to SAIS. Thank you very much for this meeting, and for also allowing me the opportunity to chair. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you,
Recording
everybody.
stopped.
Thank you, Chair.